There is a specific moment when life begins to change. And it's not when everything suddenly gets better. It's not when money shows up, when opportunities appear, or when people finally recognize your value. Life starts to change long before that. It begins at a quiet, almost imperceptible point one most people ignore, because they're too busy waiting for big events. That point is how you begin, not how you finish. Not how you react afterward, but how you start. Most people believe change happens somewhere in the middle after a lot of effort, after a lot of pain, or after some defining moment. But the truth is simpler and more uncomfortable. Change begins with the first move, with the first invisible step that almost no one takes seriously. And that's exactly why so few people truly change. You may have felt this before. That sense that you're trying, but not moving forward. That you're putting in effort, yet always feel behind your own life. That you know what needs to be done, but something inside keeps blocking you. That something isn't a lack of ability. It's a lack of alignment at the beginning. Almost no one pays attention to how they start their day, how they start a conversation, how they begin a task, how they launch a project, how they enter a new phase of life. People focus on the outcome, but ignore the emotional and mental starting point, and that's where everything breaks down. If you start the same way you always have, you'll end the same way you always do, no matter how much you try to convince yourself that this time will be different. The beginning sets the pace. The pace shapes decisions. Decisions shape destiny. Now listen closely, because this is one of the most important points you'll hear today. Most people begin life reacting. Reacting to the alarm clock, reacting to their phone, reacting to demands, reacting to problems, reacting to other people's expectations. When you begin by reacting, you're already behind, already out of control, already living someone else's agenda, not your own. People whose lives change quickly begin differently. They begin by choosing, even if it's a small choice, even if it's a silent one, even if no one sees it. They don't start by asking, what do I have to do? They start by asking, how do I want to be? That question changes everything. The way you begin creates an internal state, and that internal state spills into the rest of the day. If you start tense, you move through the day tense. If you start distracted, you stay scattered. If you start from scarcity, you make small decisions. If you start with clarity, you act with precision. Here's the most common mistake. People try to change their lives by changing external actions without changing the initial internal state. They try to be more productive while starting the day in chaos. They try to be more focused while beginning the day consuming everything around them. They try to be more confident while starting the day comparing themselves to others. It's a silent contradiction that sabotages progress. If you start differently, your life changes faster than you expect. Differently means intention before action. It means creating a small space between stimulus and response right at the beginning. It means consciously deciding how you enter the game before you start playing. This doesn't require a complex routine. It doesn't require waking up at 5 a.m. It doesn't require military discipline. It requires something much rarer, presence. It requires you to pause for a few moments and take control of your beginning. Most people wake up and immediately hand their mind over to the world: notifications, messages, news, problems. Within minutes, the mind is fragmented. When that happens, you spend the entire day trying to recover something you lost early on: clarity. People who change quickly protect the beginning. They understand that the beginning is sacred, not in a mystical way, but in a strategic one. The beginning sets the tone, and the tone defines everything. Here's an important turning point. You don't need to change everything to change quickly. You need to change how you begin. When the beginning shifts, the rest naturally adjusts. When the beginning stays chaotic, everything else becomes a constant struggle. Look at any area of life. A relationship begins with presence or with neediness. A project begins with clarity or with confusion. A conversation begins with listening or with defensiveness. How it begins determines the level of conflict, exhaustion, and outcome. This applies to your entire life. You may be realizing something uncomfortable now that you've been starting almost everything on autopilot, that you enter your days without choosing, that you step into situations carrying the weight of what came before, that you rarely give yourself permission to reset internally. And here's the good news. You can restart many times in a single day, not just in the morning. Anytime you want. Every new moment is a new beginning in disguise. And those who learn how to begin well live multiple lives within one. What separates ordinary people from those who change quickly isn't intensity, it's consistency at the beginning. They don't wait for motivation, they create alignment. They don't wait to feel good before acting. They adjust their internal state first. That adjustment is simple, but deep. It starts with silence, with breathing, with an internal question. How do I choose to enter this moment? That question may seem small, but it gives power back. When you begin acting from choice instead of reaction, things shift quickly. Your decisions become cleaner. Your mistakes decrease. Emotional exhaustion drops dramatically. You stop wasting energy fighting your own internal state. Most people aren't tired because they do too much. They're tired because they start wrong, starting in resistance, obligation, anxiety, comparison. That drains energy before action even begins. Now imagine starting differently, starting with calm, with clarity, with intention. Even when the day is hard, even when problems exist, you enter them from a different place. This is where life begins to change faster than you expect because you stop fighting the flow and start directing it. Here's another crucial point. Starting well doesn't mean feeling excited. It means being aligned. There will be days when you're not motivated, but you can still begin consciously. And awareness is more powerful than motivation. When you begin consciously, you notice your thoughts before obeying them. You notice your emotions before identifying with them. You notice impulses before acting on them. That small delay creates freedom, and freedom creates better choices. Most people don't choose, they just respond. And then they call it destiny. Let's go deeper. When you begin a day, a task, or a phase of life without presence, you bring everything unresolved with you, old fears, accumulated frustrations, limiting beliefs. They all walk in uninvited. When you begin with presence, you filter. You decide what comes in and what stays out. That changes the quality of your energy. And energy shapes results more than effort ever will. People who change quickly learn to respect their energy. They don't waste it by starting carelessly. They know scattered energy creates average results. Aligned energy creates impact. You may be starting to see why some people seem to move forward faster while doing less. They begin better. They don't sabotage themselves at the first step. This is the quiet climax of this reflection. There is no fast progress without a conscious beginning. No deep change without an initial adjustment. No clarity in the middle of chaos unless you interrupt the chaos at the start. Life changes when you change the starting point. Now I want to invite you into something practical. Starting tomorrow, observe how you begin. Notice the first minutes of your day. Notice how you enter tasks. Notice how you start conversations. And consciously choose to change that. Before beginning something important, pause for a few seconds. Take a deep breath. Release tension from your body. Ask yourself, what's the best way to begin this? Not to be perfect, but to be present. Repeat this. At first, it may feel strange. Then it will feel natural. And soon, you'll notice something surprising. Your life starts to move, not because the world changed, but because you changed the entry point. And if this message resonated with you, if it shifted how you see your own beginnings, write in the comments, I choose to begin consciously. Subscribe to the channel to keep receiving content that deepens clarity, presence, and your ability to transform your life. Leave a like, it helps this message reach people stuck in the wrong beginnings, but ready to change. Remember, You don't need to change everything. You just need to start differently. And when the beginning changes, everything else follows.